All right, welcome everybody to another episode of Clues of Leadership. I am your host, Dominic Waters, and on this show, we uncover clues of law enforcement leaders. Oh, it jumped too early. I didn't get a chance to intro. All right. As you see, we're having technical difficulties, but we're going to work through it. On this show, we talk about clues that leaders in our profession have left to us to teach us how to be better leaders, how to lead in crisis, how to lead in times of just. I think this is probably the hardest time to be in law enforcement, in my opinion, because I didn't live through those other times. But I have a mentor of mine, a friend of mine, a big brother to me. He is the deputy chief of police for Greenbelt, Maryland. He's just an awesome guy, a guy of faith, perseverance, and family. None other than my friend and my mentor, Tim White. Hey, Tim, how are you?
Hey, good Dominic. How you doing?
Hold on, I gotta give you a hand clap. Hold up. All right.
I don't know about all that.
Hey, everybody. I just wanted to introduce him properly. Had to give him his flowers. So, Tim, how are you? How are things at Greenbelt?
They're good. We're getting through this snow and all the fun that comes with that in cold weather. And just got back from a short trip to Florida, and I can tell you that I'm really looking forward to the warmer weather to come. So, yeah, it's good.
Who are you telling? I think just working through this crisis and this snowstorm has, we learned a lot. We learned the gaps in our deployment, how we relate to our other departments. We learned a lot.
Yeah, I think no matter how many times you go through any type of major incident, whether it's a storm or a crisis, something, you learn something every time. It will never be perfect, and you just take the opportunity to see where you can improve and just praise where you did well. So it's constantly learning. So yeah, there with you.
Yeah. So we were talking before we got on, and one of the reasons I asked you to come on is because of the amount of respect I have for you. I want to take people back to when I actually met you. Uh, I met you probably about 3 years ago. I was in a phase in my career where I was applying to different agencies, and I had came to your department, and first person I met was you. And I was like, man, this is crazy. I'm meeting the number two guy at that department, and I haven't even gotten into the nitty gritty part of the application process. But you told me something in that session. You was like, here's my number. If you need anything, you could call me. And we we didn't have an opportunity to work it out to where I got hired. Uh, that's another conversation for another day. But one thing that stood with me is that you kept to your word. You said, call me for anything. And it's not usual that a person in your rank and that has your authority that deal what you have to deal with on a day to day basis that says that and means it. And I've always appreciated you for that.
Yeah, I remember talking with you and setting up for you to come in and meet. And one of the things you say is, oh, the number two in your department. I think that the higher you go in any organization, the more responsibility you have to lift those up underneath of you to make them better. Look, we're in the law enforcement profession, and one thing I always say to people is whether you're going to come into the Greenbelt Police Department or any other police department, we need good men and women in this profession. We see what happens all across our profession when errors are made, bad characters get in and do damage to our profession, and we all have to live with the consequences of that. So, anything that I can do to help someone get into the job that is a person of good character, good morals, that is doing the job for the right reason. Hey, it's your career. I want you to be successful. I want you to go where you want to go, whether that's with us at Greenbelt or somewhere else. I think we'll get into it probably a little bit longer, but I also have some stories of failure in my own life and career that I think help guide me to appreciate the circumstance you were in, and having the ability to sympathize, empathize with where you were at, having been there myself. And I think through that failure of my own and that season that I went through, helped make me a better person, a better husband, a better father, and a better leader within my job. So, um, yeah.
Yeah, and I agree with you. So I want to dive right into it. So let the audience know a little bit about yourself. You know, how long have you been in law enforcement? Who you work with, who you work for. I know you work for Greenbelt now, but let's talk about your journey, how you got to where you are.
Yeah. So, growing up, young kid, had two, younger brothers. Got involved. I'll kind of start in the high school time frame. Grew up in church. Faith was the foundation of my life. Growing up, big into the youth group at church, and service was always a key part of that. Whether it was locally in the community in Baltimore with a homeless ministry, going around different summer mission trips and stuff. I was, it was kind of instilled in me that service is what our lives are about, serving others, helping others. So I had a extreme interest in flying. Wanted to be a pilot growing up. Love aviation, love planes. So I actually joined the Civil Air Patrol when I was 13 years old. It's an auxiliary of the Air Force, kind of like a JROTC, but not in the schools. It's its own entity. So I was fortunate enough through the Civil Air Patrol to be able to make my way through the ranks, and I actually was able to obtain a scholarship to get my flight training, my first 20 hours of flight training towards my private pilot's license, and so was able to solo fly a plane by myself at 16 years old. Got my pilot's license when I turned 17 years old. Was on my way towards a career as a pilot. Um, was working at a local airport when 9/11 happened. And After 9/11, couple things. One, I had this feeling of this sense that I needed to serve and serve the country, serve in some type of way that makes a difference. And number two, after the airline industry, after 9/11, things became very difficult with a lot of military pilots getting out, saturating the market, high hours. I'm a young guy, young pilot trying to build hours. So it was around that time that I made the decision that being a pilot for me was going to be a recreational thing, and that I was going to get into law enforcement. Had some friends and mentors in law enforcement. Made my way through. One of the funny things I'll mention, not funny, but one of my challenges is I was always a fat kid growing up. I was overweight. I think at that time I was 285 pounds, and the mountain that was facing me to get into law enforcement was a mile and a half run. In the time that was needed, I think it was 12 minutes and 53 seconds. And I had to bench press 99% of my body weight, which at 285 pounds for a kid that didn't work out, that's a lot of weight to push. So, long story short, persevered through that. Was able to first time I failed my PT test with Anne Arundel County. Had a officer that was there running the test encouraged me, said, "Man, don't give up. Come back, make this happen." So gave it about a month. Was in the gym, was running hard. I'd already been training for it anyway, and had just barely missed it. So was able to go back a month later, persevere, crush the test. Well, let's not say crush it. Let's just say I got past the test. Got past the test and got hired. Went to the 60th recruit class with the Anne Arundel County Police Department in October of 2002. And that was the start of my law enforcement journey. And I can keep going, or if you have any questions
So
at
let
this
me
point.
so let me dissect that a little bit, right? One of the
Yeah.
first things you said that stuck out to me is that you were rooted in faith and servitude. Um, your family gave you a structure, and I think people often think that these leaders are just naturally born. Your family gave you the foundation and put you on a pathway to being the leader you are today. And that's one thing I want to emphasize to the audience is that it always starts at home. It always starts with the people closest to you that build you up and give you that foundation. But not even that, but you went into an industry uh, piloting at a time where I think even a young man at that time, was scared to fly. So you conquered a lot at a young age, and even I never knew you was that big. That is crazy. But I
Yeah.
bet you were athletic, cut. Like I'm like, oh man, this is a model guy that I wouldn't mind having that type of physique. And to hear you say like, hey, I failed it, but I came back because I knew I wanted to be in service. It is admirable, because I know people who will fail and that's it. They give up. They give up. So you didn't get the job at Anne Arundel County. How did that affect you, and what transitioned after that?
So when I failed the PT test, I kind of looked at it, even at that young age, kind of because of my foundation. You talk about there's two options, right? I can stay defeated, and I can say I failed, I suck, I'm too fat, I'm too slow, I'm not strong enough, and I can wallow there where I'm at. Or I can look at it as a challenge and say, you know what, you beat me this time, but you're not getting me next time. And that's what I did. I had already been working and grinding towards it. And that just basically was an opportunity for me to see under that pressure where I was and where I needed to get to. And I went back out and continued to work, continued to strive to get stronger, body strength, upper body strength, uh, speed with the run, and just push forward to it. So I mean, it's basically anything that's worth achieving is going to require work. It's going to require sacrifice and discipline, and that's true in anything. Like I said, whether it's in education and schooling, in a career, in a family, in a marriage, a relationship, parenting, it requires sacrifice. It requires discipline, and that was one of my lessons early on, of hey, hard work and grinding will get you to your goals. You just have to be willing to do it and stick with it.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Um, One of the things that I admired again about you was that you told me that story about how you had to work hard and overcome a lot to get to the point where you are. And I think oftentimes people don't get to see that journey or understand the story. They just arrive at a point in time in your career where you've already kind of climbed the ladder and rank structure. And so they don't get to hear that backstory. So it's always good to hear what you had to get through to get there. I do have a question. So, about leadership, early on in your career, what was it that you think you misunderstood about leadership, and that with your experience changed the way you think about it now?
Hmm. Well, I think you mentioned it earlier, that question that's always asked, are leaders born, or are leaders developed? And I'm of the belief that leaders are developed. I certainly was not born a leader. I'm certainly not gifted with the ability to get up and give grandiose speeches, or rah rah motivational speaks. My philosophy is, and this was developed over time, is for me it's all about relationships. I've heard, I did a presentation with the managers at Mission Barbecue. And one of the things when I was talking to them, I was telling them was, my leadership philosophy is it's just relationships, right? Everything is about relationships. You talk about what is leadership, and if you look up the book definition, they'll tell you it's influence, being able to guide individuals or a group to a common purpose. But for me, all of that is done through relationships. If you don't have those relationships where you build trust, you build that goodwill, and knowing that people knowing that you care about them and where they're going and what you're doing, you can't have that influence. You can't have being able to guide them towards that common purpose. So When I was talking to Mission Barbecue about that, the one of the vice presidents actually came up to me and he said, "I've always told everybody at Mission Barbecue that we're in the people business." He goes, "After talking with you, I'm changing that because people are just people, and it's not the people that we're involved in, it's the relationships with the people that we're involved in." So I would say that's the biggest thing overall. When I first, when I was younger, I saw leadership as a rank, as a position, and you needed to do what you needed to do to get to that spot, to earn the respect. Whatever the things are on your collars, or stripes on your sleeves. That's what leadership is, and that's not what it is at all. I always laugh because people sometimes will say to me, I'll sign an email, Tim, or if I answer the phone or something, that's who I am. I'm Tim. My position is deputy chief, but that's not who I am. That doesn't make me. I am Tim. I'm a Christian husband, father, friend who does the job of deputy chief with the Greenbelt Police Department. I am not the deputy chief of the Greenbelt Police Department who makes me who I am as a person. So I think with that's the biggest thing that that I learn is leadership is a mindset. Leadership is how you relate and have relationships with people, not a position, not a title, not a rank.
That that in itself could be the whole show. Like, people don't understand this, and I say it so often. Before you get to the rank, how did you develop the relationships with the people? How did you develop those people? Um, because oftentimes we are we like you said, we take the test, we do whatever is required to get into the position, but we haven't earned the trust of the people. And so you're a young supervisor and you're telling people what to do, and they're looking at you like, really? Like, you just got this position, you're still wet behind the ears, those type of things. But once you develop the trust with people and they see that you believe in them and that you want the best for them and that you're willing to invest in them, they will literally do anything that is required because that trust and that bond that you built with them. And I'm glad you said that because it's not something often that I think about, but I always tell people my door is always open. I want to know about you. I want to know about your kids. I want to know about your house projects, like if you're building something, what vacations you plan on taking. I want to know about these things because I am, like you say, I'm Dominic. Um, I am the lieutenant with the District Heights Police Department, but that doesn't define me. Outside of that job, I'm a father. I'm a Christian. Like the things that you said, the things that I believe in, and I think so often people get wrapped in the uniform that they forget that they're a person outside of that.
Yeah, and I think with, I don't want to say youth, and I don't want to say immaturity, but just not having experienced everything that you have in life. Look, I'm 44 years old. I'm mid midlife, whatever. I always laugh when people are like, oh, 50 years old, you're middle of life. It's like, yeah, how many people do you know are 100? So I've had 44 spins around the planet, that I've learned a lot through a lot of mistakes, a lot of bad decisions, learn mistakes made, and you learn from all those things. You learn from the way that when you're young, in any career, in any relationship, those experiences help build you and define how you move forward, in your own life, in your own leadership and job. So we've all had supervisors that, myself included, that you're like, man, if I'm ever in a position to lead, it is not going to be like that. And then you have those where you're like, man, I wish I could have the impact that this individual has, and I'm going to try to mold myself after the way that they operate, because that's who I want to be. And I think again that's where that mentoring and guidance as a leader is so important, to make yourself available, to be humble enough to um, you know have honest conversations, to take criticism, to have um, those times where you can help pass down the things that you've learned. And I will say those the relationships I'm talking about, those not only go in our workplace, but they're also critical in the job that we all do with building those relationships in the community. You have to have that trust and respect from those in the community that you serve. And I'll steal a philosophy that I learned from one of my mentors, Pastor Chris Martin. He called it the 101% principle. When you deal with somebody, you find the 1% that you agree on and you focus 100% on that. And that's the foundation you start in and building that relationship and being able to move forward. You could be on polar opposite sides. Look for that 1% that you agree on and focus all your effort and attention on building off of that. And that's one of the things that, through, as you stated earlier, many of the trials that we've gone through in law enforcement over the years, you know, w- building those relationships with the community. You have those that are easy to deal with and those that are difficult to deal with, and those that are difficult, those are the ones you got to work on even harder, and finding that common ground that you can agree on, and working and leaning on that to continue to build that relationship is critical.
So yeah, I love that. I love all of that because that's the focus. Build relationships with our people so they can lead better, so they can be a better service to the community, but then build a relationship with the community as well so they trust us more when we come to do our job, that they believe that we're there to really serve them. And everything that you said is just going back to servitude. Like that, that thing is like that's your leadership philosophy. Is that what I'm getting? That servantship is where you pretty much landed when it comes to leadership.
Yeah, I think servant leadership is, it definitely, if I had to say what my style or just kind of natural gift is, like I said, I'm not the guy to get in front of a room and give a speech to go, charge a hill, or to give an elaborate, well, eloquent, speech. I mean, even sitting on here doing this podcast is kind of uncomfortable to me, knowing that other people are going to watch this. But if you and I were sitting in a room, we were, out, in a car, and just, that's that one-on-one kind of, how can I help you? How can I serve? How can I help anybody else? I like being, and this will be weird for some people because most people think of a leader as like that guy that's out in front, a guy or girl that's out in front leading the charge. Um, I like to be kind of the quiet guy in the back, not seen, just helping, guiding, leading the way, but not in a look at me type way. That's just not my style. I, you talk about servant leadership, and I'm not bringing this up for any reason other than it just keyed in my mind. This last snowstorm that we had, um, I was came in. Our public works crew was busy out doing snow removal operations, and the members of the team that normally, clean the station and take care of the facilities and stuff, they were all busy out shoveling, working 18-hour days, shoveling and scraping ice and everything. So I came in after that long weekend, and I went downstairs, and all the trash cans are overflowing, with trash from the weekend and the food, and everything that the officers had there, because public works wasn't there to empty it. So see a need, right? The trash cans aren't going to empty themselves. Went to their closet, got the little wheel along trash can, pulled a handful of trash bags out, stuffed them in my pocket, put on some rubber gloves, and went around the station and emptied the trash. And you wouldn't believe the kind of shock and awe and then laughter. I mean, I have a picture where our dispatch supervisor took a picture of me, and I'm like, don't take a picture of me. And she's like, no, no, no. And then one of the other guys took a picture when I was downstairs. And I'm like, why are you taking a picture? And they're like, we're saving this for your retirement party because this is the type of guy that you are. And to me, it's just like, hey, there's a need. It needs to be done. Everybody else is working the road. They're out in the snow and the ice, helping people stuck on, in their cars, responding to calls for service. Here I am at the station, and I can make things a little bit better for them coming back and not having this stinky, smelly, overflowing trash all over. Like, why wouldn't that be my job? Why wouldn't I do that? So yeah, servant leadership. How can I serve? How can I make things better? That was always the other little quote that I would have on my board when I was a corporal and sergeant. I remember I wrote it in what was supposed to be erasable marker, but somehow it became permanent. So it just stayed on the whiteboard. Just the simple three words: make it better. In everything you do, look to make it better for those around you, make it better for if you're on that call for service. Your job there is to make the situation better for those people involved. Um, make the working environment better, make the, just whatever it is that you're doing, whether your family, your friendships, make it better. Look for ways, look for opportunities, everything you can do to serve and make it better. I mean, that's just, yeah, I don't know. That's just, like I said, I guess the way I raised, it was ingrained in me, and just doing that. And one of the cool things, and I hope I'm not jumping ahead, one of the greatest things that I get out of leadership is seeing other people succeeding and um, gaining that ability, the seeing the leadership in them, seeing them succeed. My kids, I feel bad for them in a sense because they grew up in a house the same as I did. We went to church every Sunday. That we're my wife, God bless her, she's the reason that my kids are where they are. But I have one son who's a first lieutenant in the U.S. Army, got a full scholarship for his 4-year degree. He's working on his master's degree now. He's leading soldiers, led them overseas, and now leading, here in his assignment with their basic training. I have one son who works for, I don't know if I'm allowed, a no-name agency in Fort Meade, and they're paying for his school, and he's got that government job now that he's had for 2 years since graduating high school. My daughter's in the nursing program. She's already got her initial nursing certification working, and I was able to throughout them growing up, they were connected in the youth group. They were connected through faith-based organizations, leading, guiding, and actually had the opportunity to go on several mission trips, specifically in the Dominican Republic with them, and get to see them serve and lead and just learn that culture of servanthood, and just being the hands and feet to serve those around us. So when I made deputy chief, everybody was like, "Hey, congratulations!" But the coolest thing for me was my son and his army, dress uniform pinning my rank on me, and they're like, "Yeah, congratulations, deputy chief." I'm like, "No, but did you see my son and his uniform?" And he commissioned, and at the time he's a second lieutenant, and he's got assigned as a platoon leader, in the first cav out in Texas, and then he was going overseas, and my other son, he achieved this, and it's the same with I'll say my work family. When somebody graduates a program, Lieutenant Fernandez got into the FBI Academy. Jermaine and Mike Apgar and Mike Parsley, all in Northwestern, as I know you've gone to as well, and them succeeding and graduating. Officers going through FTO school, frontline leadership school as a new corporal getting promoted. Those are all the things that make me excited. It becomes more about everybody else and seeing them succeed that brings you that joy and that pleasure in or work satisfaction more so than, oh, hey, I did this or I did that or I got this rank. It's really about seeing others succeed that is the reward of leadership.
That is so fulfilling to watch the people you love, the people that you built a relationship with, succeed and hit some of their goals. But I remember when you got promoted, and I remember the emotion over your face as your son was pinning you because I got a chance to come in and see that ceremony. And I remember how excited you were that your son got to be there to pin you. That was an awesome day. Just the whole event that your agency had put on, it was just top notch. I was just so appreciative to be there that day. Um, but to go back to what you said about the people succeeding, how do you know as a leader when you recognize leadership qualities in other people? How do you bring that out of them? How do you identify that and bring that out of them?
Mm, wow. Um, I think I think it happens. Identifying it happens naturally just through what we talked about earlier and having those relationships. You have those relationships. You connect with people on an individual basis. You get to learn what drives them, what motivates them. One of the things that and I don't take any credit for this. It's just something the chief and I have done. Is when you go for a hiring interview to come into a police department, oftentimes you get peppered with questions as the applicant. You know, why do you want to work here? What do you bring to the table? Where do you see yourself in 5 years? Why should we hire you over somebody else? One of the things we started doing is, because employment is a reciprocal relationship, right? We obviously as an agency are looking to get a service out of them. We want good people coming into our organization that's going to serve the community, but they're also getting something from us more than just a paycheck. They want a healthy environment to come to work in, that they have opportunities for advancement, for career development, for personal growth and development, for whatever it is that they're looking for. And I think it's important for us as leaders to know that from Jump Street, right? So what we started doing is, in these interviews, we get through our questions and then we just basically have a conversation like we're doing now. Like, hey, what is it in law enforcement that you're interested in? Is it investigations? Is it canine? Is it SWAT? Is it drug work? Is it, what is it that interests you? What type of training are you interested in? Are you looking at getting furthering your education? Are you looking at, where do you see yourself after doing some time in patrol? What would be your ideal, knowing that it'll change, but right now, what would be your ideal path, career path? So then from the start, you can help not only yourselves and your supervisor as understanding, hey, what motivates this person, what are they interested in doing, but help develop a path for them to be able to get those trainings and experiences, and maybe some time where they can get into a part-time unit or start shadowing to start guiding and their experience in that direction. So one, I would say it's being connected and knowing what motivates people, what their interests are, where they want to go, but then also just being involved and trying to help those individuals develop. Leadership. You have, what I will say, your informal leaders, and those informal leaders are more impactful than your quote formal leaders. I mean, you can designate somebody as, this is your your squad leader, and they're in charge, and they're that doesn't give them any, just granting them that authority doesn't give them any you know position. I mean, other than a position, it doesn't give them any influence or trust or anything with the men and women that they're over top of. Those informal leaders, those that have been there and that have built that relationships with those around them, We've had leaders in our departments that had wanted no promotional desires whatsoever. They're like, hey, I'm a master patrol officer, and that's where I want to stay. I don't want to be a corporal. I don't want to be in charge of anybody else. But those individuals, despite not having the rank, had more influence and more positive guidance over the officers and those around them than some of them in formal leadership roles. So that just goes to show you that, again, it's not the position, it's the influence that you have, the relationships you have over somebody. So
You're, I can agree with every single thing you said because those are the things I recognize is that there are the informal leaders that if I need something done, I say, hey, let me bring you in the office. Let me get this person to buy in first. And then that person will go and get everyone else to buy in, especially like when we're doing a policy change or like something big is going to happen. I'll say, hey, look, can you talk to the guys, get them on board? Because you know they're not going to like it if it comes from me. And it usually
yeah,
works.
yeah. Well, case in point, body cameras. Those that remember when body cameras started being implemented in police departments, I got tasked with researching and creating our body camera policy back, started in 2014, end of 2013, beginning of 2014. And first thing off the bat that we did was we got a body camera committee that included frontline officers, those informal leaders, the FOP, formal leadership from Kalia and the policy guru. We got everybody together, and we had different levels of leadership. So we had patrol sergeants, we had, like I said, a member of command staff. I was a sergeant at the time, I believe, a corporal, and then sergeant, got promoted while I was there, and brought them in because we knew that putting body cameras in, what's the thing they always say, the only constant is change. And what do police officers hate? They hate change. They want change, but then they hate change, and I can relate to that. I'm no different than anybody else. But we knew, like, hey, putting body cameras in, this is going to be a major uphill battle because the snitch boxes they're just going to sit around and watch them, and they're looking to fire us and get us in trouble. So we're like, hey, let's create a committee. So this is a joint effort. It's not command or leadership pushing this down our throats. It's going to happen, right? It was going to happen regardless because it was mandated by our city administration. So it's going to happen, but how can we roll this out and lead through this challenge the best way possible? So it was getting these informal leaders, letting them help craft and guide the policy, letting them help select the equipment that we were going to do, help us select everything related around it. Now, their input was valued. Were there
Make the
some
moves.
things that they were were there some things that they wanted that just wasn't going to be possible? Sure. Were there some things that the administration flexed on? Sure. Compromise, right? But when we went to do the pilot program, when we rolled out the entire body camera program, we had these champions of it that were the informal leaders. So it helped smooth that transition a lot more than if we would have just went and said, the chief is forcing, or implementing body worn cameras, put these on your chests and go forth and, sin no more, it wouldn't have went well. So there were still challenges, no doubt, but I think it made it smoother, by getting that buy-in and such. So
I love the way you guys put the committee together to have all levels, all ranks buy into the what was going to happen anyway. Because, like you said, now years later, the state mandated that all police departments have to have body worn camera. So you guys were ahead of the curve, but you guys recognized early on, hey, we have to do this, but there's a different way we can do this that will land better with the people who have to actually implement and go about their day to day business. And so let's go about that. I want to backtrack to one of the things you said early on about it being a reciprocal relationship between the organization and the new employees that are coming on board when you interview, because I think you guys get it right at Greenbelt and how you do your recruiting and how you hire on new staff. But how do you, as a leader, build the culture in your organization to, because you're looked at as one of the model agencies in this region? How do you do that? Like, how do you guys identify? How does the team look at it, as far as the culture that you guys have and build up the department?
Wow. So culture is a difficult thing because you cannot change culture overnight. Culture is takes years to guide and mold and develop. Sometimes, in order for culture to change, there has to be certain individuals that leave the department, certain types of individuals that come into the department, certain individuals that get into leadership roles. And really, I think if you're looking to implement culture, it has to be a constant um, a constant hum. It's not a loud, boisterous, bam, punch you in the mouth. We're changing the culture. It has to be a steady kind of behind the scenes guiding over a period of time. When I came into Greenbelt, there was a certain culture. That culture has shifted over time. What was a very senior department with lots of experienced officers, far along in their career, is now a very youthful organization. Most of our patrol, I think probably our average age in patrol is I don't know, mid to late 20s, and experience wise less than 5 years. That's good and bad, right? It's great because you have young people that are excited to do the job. They're energetic. They're doing the job for the right reasons. They've grown up in the technological era, so they understand technology, social media, connecting, representing the department. They get along, for the most part with each other. They're excited to come to work. They have a good time. They joke. They're happy to be there. They buy into a lot of the philosophies now in modern 21st century policing that some of the old heads were like, oh, that's garbage. That's soft. We have a CIT program and dealing with, mental health challenges, substance abuse challenges. That's something that, years ago in law enforcement, that wasn't a thing that was bought into. And, now, like I said, the younger folks see the benefits, and this is, body cameras. You have young folks that they came into law enforcement with body cameras, so there isn't this like, oh, now it's changed the way we do the job. No, that's the way they've known to do the job from the academy. So our culture has definitely shifted, and I think that that generational shift was part of it. And then again, I think just the way that you as a leader lead, you set those expectations, you set um, those kind of guide rails of how we expect you to operate, how we expect you to treat each other. And a lot of the times it's just again being present um, when things happen that is not the direction you want the culture to go. You don't have to embarrass anybody. You don't have to be cruel. But you can pull somebody to the side and just, hey, I just wanted to have a conversation with you real quick. Like, do we as a command staff, have we ever treated you in a manner where we make you feel belittled or, anything other than respect? No. Well, then we don't expect you to do that to anybody else. We can have fun, we can joke, we can, even rag on people, but there's a difference, and we know where that line is. And then, that kind of modification is, praise in public, discipline in private. When you see behavior that is going in the direction you want that culture, you're going to praise it, right? Whether it's through positive recognition, a pat on the back, formal recognition, and again, it's not something that you can just say, here is our new culture and it will be this way forevermore. It is something that you just have to constantly mold and shape. It's kind of like, my kids just took a pottery class last semester, and learning how to do pottery. Like, it takes time, it takes shaping, things fall over and you got to put it back together, and you may even have to squash the whole thing down and start again. But in the end, your hope is to have what you're going for, and continue to make little adjustments, little modifications as need be. But culture is huge. People outside your organization will quickly learn your culture from the interactions that you have with individuals, even in policing. When they meet people at court, um, we had a active shooter event recently, and it was a joint thing between a couple different agencies, and it was a phenomenal event. And when we were doing the debriefing, there was 100 plus people in this room, and my son, who's in the military, happened to be home for Christmas break, and he asked if he could come and observe and kind of see how law enforcement tactics are related to military tactics. So, sure, come on. Well, he sat in there, and at the during the debrief, of course, just like we do in policing, right, or in anything, all the little cliques sat together. This department was all at one table, that department at one table, the administrators here and whatever. And my son and I were sitting over with some of the hotel security staff kind of on the side, and the the way that the Greenbelt officers were just having a good time, joking. When one of them would stand up to talk about or give a point on a debrief, the rest of them would all clap and cheer and whatever, and everybody else is kind of looking like, what's up with these jokers? Why are they so happy and being whatever? And my son said to me on the drive home, he said, Dad, he was like, the culture of your guys and gals there is completely different. He said it's positive, that you can tell they want to be there, they're excited, they enjoy being with everybody else. Not that the others didn't, but they were just very, stoic and whatever. But that's just kind of the vibrant kind of culture that I love coming to work for, because again, I'm not getting any younger, so I kind of feed off their energy and just have a good time with them. So yeah, that's culture.
Yeah, no, it's a slow moving object, and there are going to be some hiccups, but you said it. It took y'all time to build it. But I can tell you from outside looking in, and even when I wanted to join, us all I could think about was the reputation, the culture. I was like, it wasn't even about the money at that point. Like, I was like, I just want to be in the department because I knew how you guys treated your staff, and that was everything to me at that time. Being in leadership, you said it just now. You chastise in private or discipline in private, and you praise in public. As a leader, you often have to deal with the discipline of your officers. How how do you do that effectively without losing the individual? Like, they understand you have a job to do, and there's a way to go about doing it, but you don't demean them. How do you do that?
I think, and I hate to keep going back to it, but my answer to everything is going to be relationship, right? So you have a relationship as a leader built, where you hopefully have some level of trust with those in your organization. And yeah, look, I mean, discipline is a fact of any job. Like, I screw up, I make mistakes, I've done things wrong, and I've had a heck, I got a verbal counseling form because I decided to respond to a call a few years ago, and I got there, and I didn't have my body worn camera on me because I was coming back from a meeting, And I was like, oh, let me go run on this call with somebody, these guys. And I get there, and it was a robbery suspect that was sitting in a hallway. And long story short, he takes off running. I chase him down. We run around the back of the building, get him in custody. And I'm like, yes, old man caught you, robbery suspect in custody, job well done. And then the chief's like, hey, where's your body camera? And I'm like, yeah, yeah, you got me. Policy violation, whatever punishment it is. Yeah, I own it. It is what it is. So I would say that that's kind of the path I take with everybody. And is look, we all learn through this job. We all do things, and have to take ownership of the things we do and sometimes don't do. For me, and what I explain is there's a difference between a mistake of the mind and an error of the heart. Um, is what you're doing willful and malicious, and you're intentionally doing wrong, or did you make an error in judgment? Did you make a decision that in hindsight you could have done better at? Was it a mistake or was it an intentional act? And I think that differentiates things. The biggest thing is you always treat people with respect. That doesn't change just because somebody is the subject of a complaint or a misconduct. Unfortunately, it's a part of the job. I think you could go and talk to most of the individuals that we've had to let go from our department. Um, some of who I still talk to this day. Some who still will reach out to me for guidance, for questions. Hey, I'd like to do this. What do you think? And that's because of the way you treat somebody, right? Um, they know, and it's clear, like, hey, this is a process we have to do. We're going to do so fairly. We're going to keep you apprised of what's going on, but at no point am I going to treat you less than. Am I going to treat you, poorly, wrongly? They're still a human being. They're still a person that is in an organization that we're charged with their care. And if the end result of that discipline is that they have a suspension, or they have some type of discipline, even up to termination, you can still love and care for that person, treat them with respect. And that's kind of where we're at. The I will say that the Maryland police reform act, with the changes with the administrative charging committee, and how we now have to implement discipline, it makes it a little more difficult. And not difficult in the fact of, um, that I think things are unfair, that things are being done wrong. It makes it difficult for a number of reasons. Like, discipline, I believe, should be, appropriate, proportional, and swift. So, the punishment should meet the violation, and it should be administered in close succession to the violation. Right? It's kind of like, if you think about, parenting. Like, you're not going to go back, months from now and be like, remember 3 months ago when you did this? Well, now you're being grounded for that. And so we used to be able to, especially for minor violations that are like run of the mill. I made a judgment error here. I did this or that. Not a big deal. Like, you could go and you could address that. You could sit down with the supervisor. You could review the body worn camera. You could say, hey, here's where you did great. Here's some areas where we have some concern. How do you think you could have done better? Okay, yes, this was a violation. This is a policy thing. We're going to send you to some retraining. We're going to do this. Here's a letter of reprimand, whatever it may be. And it was over and done with. The challenge now is, if there's a issue of a complaint of misconduct, or an error, if it involves a member of the public, it now has to be fully investigated, which takes let's say minimum 30 days, sometimes longer. It then has to get submitted down to the administrative charging committee, which is going to sit there for 60 plus days. So by the time you're finally getting around to closing this, you have, 3, 6, 9 months of this dragging on, and that's a mental strain and stress on the officer going through this entire process. So all of that to say, even with that, talking with the officer and reassuring them, look, this is what happened. We're going through this process. We care about you. We're going to get through this. This is not a terminable offense. This is not something that is going to be the end of your career. We're going to work on getting you through this and getting to the other side and moving forward, and just reassuring them, because again, it's a long process, and I think that's the biggest thing is, it just, that's weighing on you for so long, and instead of addressing it and being able to move forward in a positive direction, it's just a cloud kind of hanging over you. So it's important to continue to feed into those officers as you go through that lengthy process.
I agree. I agree. In Maryland, we had some policy changes that does give us a little challenge when it comes to swiftly rendering discipline. I'm going through it myself, dealing with the issues at my department. So you've been in the profession now for quite some time, and you've seen a lot of changes over the years. What has been what you would say, like when you knew the era of policing had changed? Like for me, I came in at 2010 and body worn cameras weren't a thing. Drones weren't a thing. And now these things are must haves in your police department to effectively give certain services, like state mandates that we have body worn camera, and the drone as a first responder assist us in so many aspects: search and rescue, getting eyes on officers out there by themselves. It renders so much. What have you noticed over your years that you would say, I noticed this, and this was the change of an era for law enforcement?
Yeah, I would say the point was around 2016 with the president's task force on 21st century policing. And don't fact check me. I think it was somewhere around 2016. I don't remember the exact dates, but when that came, that was post Freddie Gray and some of the troubling incidents that had occurred that get garnered nationwide attention and calls for police reform. And then, of course, that led into George Floyd and COVID. But I think it was during that, the outcome of that president's task force, where it really kind of solidified on a national scale, like this is the direction that policing is going. And I think it kind of signaled to everybody that the old way of doing business is gone, and this is the new way. And if you're going to be a reputable, community oriented agency, these are the things that you're going to have to do and focus on. And those pillars, I think, really helped um, shape and guide agencies of every size and scope to be able to, hey, these are the focal points of what's important. And that led us, and like I said, guiding up into COVID, and then all of the changes that came with COVID and George Floyd and the defund the policing era. There was just so much here in the last 10 years, that policing has evolved and changed. Um, and I think, personal opinion, everybody has their personal opinion. I think we're in a better place today. Are we, the Wild West running around chasing, and no, and some people would say that those were the good old days, right? Criminals knew not to run, and that they were going to get arrested if they committed a crime, and not quote soft on crime. And you can make arguments on there of the pros and cons of some of those changes, but what I look at is what are the tools in the toolbox that we have now, and are we better equipped to do this job safer, more intelligently, um, and you know equipping us and our officers to be able to better serve the community in the way that they have the expectations for us. And I think we're now in an era, with everything that's going on with ICE, and the calls there. And I will say this, for all of the COVID and the George Floyd and the police reform, I would say kind of the federal agencies were kind of, I don't want to say exempt from that, but they were kind of, like a safe haven, like, oh, the feds got it all together and it's the local and state agencies that are jacked up and need reform and we need to defund them. So it's kind of funny how the pendulum swings, where now it's this federal agency and some of the surrounding federal agencies are undertrained, Wild West cowboys, and the state and local police are, the well trained, well vetted, things. And I will agree with that. I think we are, and I stand by that. But I say all of that to say is this profession in the 20 coming up on 24 years that I've done it, it's very cyclical, right? Whether you look back in the 90s with, before I was in policing, Rodney King, and every so often, 5 to 10 years, there's something that starts changing. I think it used to be a longer gap, um, you know, um, before there were these things that happened that called for changes for policing. I think now what COVID was, there was 2014, and then Michael Brown and Freddie Gray, and then 2020 with COVID and George Floyd, and now here we are in 2025, 2026. That time gap seems to be getting smaller with these kind of errors and shifts. So I think that has to do with social media and the ability of the information to be spread and incidents out there. So all that to say, if you're new in law enforcement, just hold on, because it's not like it's going to end. It's going to be constant refining, constant new challenges, and that's where leadership's so important. You need leaders to be able to guide through that, to be able to lead through that, to keep people motivated, to keep people focused, to lead through the changes that are going to be required above our heads. Because honestly, we're not the ones making all the decisions on what's going to be implemented in our departments. There are things that are guided and directed to us from political entities at the state, local levels, and it's our responsibility as leaders to learn how to integrate those changes into our department and do so without hampering the effectiveness and operational abilities of our men and women doing the job.
Man, yeah, it's changed. It's changed. And I always tell people this. I'm like, listen, if you want the good old days and you think that's where policing should go, then you need to retire, because we're not going
Mhm.
back to those. The policies have changed, the legislators have
Yep.
changed. So many things have changed, and we had to evolve with the times to still render the service that we're sworn the oath to take and give. If you have, just let's say in your department, you got master police officer going into that first supervisory rank. So now you're going from, let's say that person is the informal leader to the leader with the title. What advice would you give to that person stepping into that first supervision rank, where they have to have some type of leadership skills to make it through?
Yeah, and that's a difficult transition to make, especially in a small department, because basically overnight you're going from the informal leader, with no supervisory responsibility, um, to overnight having that agency responsibility of not only protecting, your officers and making sure they go home at the end of the night, but also protecting the agency and making sure that the officers are doing the job properly, that they have the tools and equipped to do that. But at a small agency, a large agency, I could get transferred to another district. They may or may not know me. They might have heard about me and whatever stories there are. But at a small agency, I'm now in charge of the same officers that just yesterday I was, running calls with and had no supervisory responsibility over. So, um, my my I guess guidance or suggestion is, you know, um, I think you have to have a conversation with them and just basically say, look, yes, I got promoted into a new role. I have responsibilities, supervisory responsibilities, but I'm still here. I'm still, you have that relationship, right? And you're building that up. You will always, and I'll just give you the caveat now that you will at some point hear that, oh, you've changed, he's changed, you've gotten a lobotomy, you're now a company man, you're a this, you're a that, whatever it is, you're going to hear it. So just go ahead and expect it. Don't take it to heart. Don't, I mean, it's funny. I have a coworker that stepped into a new role. And with our agency, it's a pretty big jump from role to the role that individual's in. And they just kind of some days are like, just grabbing their head and being like, you know, my goodness, like I'm still here. I'm still, the same person. I'm trying to do the right things and take care of them. And, it's headache after headache after headache. And there's going to be that transition period. And, if you want to call it like a purgatory or, a timeout zone or something where they're finding out who you are in your new role. And I think it's important, again, to be present, maintain those relationships, and just prove to them that, look, yes, I have these responsibilities. I'm the same person. I'm still here. I'm still have your best interests at heart. But here is my responsibilities. And here's the position that the role that I have to take. And I think just with some time, it sinks into that. I'm in my position now that I've been in, is way easier than it was when I made that transition from officer to corporal, because you had individuals that, well, I've been here 28 years and this guy's only been here for 4 years, and what does he know? And he's not going to tell me what to do. And then when you make the jump to sergeant, well, you've already been a corporal, so you've already had that supervisory responsibility. When you make the jump to command, that's when it's another difficult transition, because again, that's when you get the lobotomy. That's when you're the upstairs, you're no longer whatever. And you're one of them. And I think it is a responsibility when you take on that role to understand that. And you're not going to change your responsibilities, but I think you have to be responsible to know that there's this feeling, and to do what you can do to help connect and relate and show that, yes, this is my role, these are my responsibilities, but I'm still here. I still have your best interests at heart. I'm still here for your good. I'm still here to help advance your career in the directions you want to go. Yes, I'm responsible for making sure you stay within the guardrails, and if need be, we're going to have a difficult conversation, but I'm still Tim. This is just my new responsibility, and we'll get through it. So yeah.
Man, I could talk to you for hours. I'm gonna ask you one more question because I want to let you go and respect your time. The next generation coming into this profession, like you said, they're coming into it. Social media, AI, a ton of technology. Just the landscape of policing has changed. 21st century policing. Here in Maryland, we have to deal with the Maryland Police Accountability Act. And even now, currently, the Maryland General Assembly is meeting, and there's going to be new legislation that's going to be pushed down to all of us in law enforcement here in the state. What leadership lesson would you give to the next generation of leaders coming into our profession?
Um, I think I would have to say um, flexibility is key. You have to keep an open mind. You have to be able to adapt and overcome. And I think more than flexibility, I'll use that adapt and overcome. You're going to face challenges. Some challenges we don't even know yet. We haven't, seen legislation that'll be proposed in the next 2 to 10 years. And if the indication of past uh, performance is the indication of future. Um, there's going to be some things coming forward that are going to be pretty difficult for our profession and to guide through. So, um, one is you have to lead. Being able to adapt and overcome those challenges is going to be key. Your people rely on you for it. Your people are looking to you for guidance and for those answers, and you know stay connected, um, broaden your network. I had the opportunity to go to the FBI Academy, Maryland Chiefs, FBI leaders, all of those. The information you learn in those courses is fantastic, but it doesn't surpass the networking and connections that you make in there. Man, I'm a dumb kid from Glen Burnie, and I have gotten so many things wrong in my life and my career. But the one thing I've always had the ability to do is to
Go get it.
pick up a phone and call somebody and say, "Hey, have you ever experienced a situation like this? Have you ever gone through this? How did you handle it? What did you do? What would you recommend?" Um, because having that network, again, it's not about knowing everything. It's about knowing where to get the answers and where to get the good guidance. Lean on your mentors, lean on your connections, take the opportunity in all your training courses, in meetings, in every opportunity you get, make those connections, because you never know when you're going to be able to lean on that person's experience, that person's knowledge, skills, abilities, and that makes you better. And you don't have to tell anybody else where you got the information, or hey, I called this deputy chief at this agency, or I called this police officer first class at this agency. All they know is this is the decision you made and you went forward, but you did so in an informed way, and you leaned on those relationships. And funny I say that word, it all goes back to relationships. To wrap that back up, leadership is about relationships, and using those relationships to improve your ability to influence, to guide, to shape, and to be effective. So, yeah, just relationships.
Man, thank you so much. And so just to recap, like what Deputy Chief has said is relationships, 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 and being willing to do the things to serve those you're in charge of. I go back to a quote in a philosophy from Simon Sinek. It's not about being in charge, it's about taking care of those you're in charge of. And and that's one of the things I take
Mm.
away from this conversation
Amen.
that you and I have had, and having a grounding in faith and believing in God that He's going to always deliver and guide you in your principles. So I thank you so much, Tim. Thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedule to join me and participate in this conversation. If you like the information that I gave here, make sure you like, subscribe, and share this podcast. Um, Thank you again, Tim, and you be safe out there, brother.
Yeah, thank you. It was a pleasure. Take care.